All right. We're hoping to connect here. All right. Looks like we may be live. How you all doing today? I hope you're doing great. I am excited to share with you some of the things that I have been using while doing supervision. I think it's important to use if you have supervisees or if you are in clinical practice and looking for some ideas. I think that these are some good tips that you could use. We're going to go on and try to jump into it. Um, and what we'll be focusing on, I don't know if you all have ever had the experience where you've heard yourself say or experienced the sentiment that my client won't talk. My client just won't talk. What do we do to support a client that doesn't talk? Where there's a number of things that we can do. I know you've got a lot of tools in the arsenal, but during this session, I want to share with you something that I've been using and um, that I want to something that I presented to the group that we all want to integrate into our practice. Because and I don't want to get too deep into it, but it will help you to be able to come like just using this alone can give you so many sessions just because of the information that you'll learn. Okay. And so I want to dive into that in just a second. But just before we do that, I do want to share with you some of the things that we have coming up. And we have a free CEU coming up very shortly that we hope that you all can all attend. We will be having a free continuing education training. Um, and I'm going to bring that up in just a second. I never can bring it up. And it's PTSD versus moral injury. PTSD versus moral injury. And we're hoping that you all could come out, and that will be on Tuesday the 18th. We had a full group. We had probably about uh, almost 90 people this week in our training. And so this is a great training, and it'll be presented by none other than my boy Ryan Wolf, and he does an excellent job. He is a veteran and has experience with helping out in these areas. And he was great when he presented last time. Okay, real quick, we do have the supervisor training coming up. A lot of questions have been coming about the supervisor training. You will need to check the criteria. We're going to post it on here. You will have to have some years experience in order to do this, in order to take the supervisor training. For LBSWs, you need to have 5 years experience. Post license LMSWs, you need to have 3 years, and then LICSWs who want to become supervisors 2 years. And but we'll have that on March 24th. Let me know if you have any questions. Don't hesitate to shoot me a DM. And then we also have the LICSWs. Those of you that are LICSWs, you are required to have a DSM-5 TR training. Check ours out. This is online on demand, and we'll be putting another one out soon, a newer one. So stay tuned for that. All right, let's get back into our subject here. And I wanted to talk to you about if you have had a client. I'm going to share my screen that has been difficult to talk with, a client that has been difficult to talk with. They don't engage you. I'm thinking about situations where sometimes if I'm having like, let's just say I have a couple, a male and a female. A lot of times the males are kind of shut off. And it's difficult to understand. You might identify certain things about them, but it's just like, man, what's really inside that head? Because they've been trained many times based on experiences. Some of us as men, we don't emote as much. And when you're dealing with particularly an avoidant personality, whether or not it's a male or female, they have been primed and groomed to protect. In other words, there's a wall. I'm only going to let you inside so much. And so we're going to find out a tool that you can use, a more empirically based type of tool that you can use to help you to kind of break down that wall just a bit or get some additional insights. But just before we get into that, I'm sharing with you some of the questions that in supervision we'll often do test questions and things like this, like that. Of course, this is probably not going to be on the test, but we want to make sure that our clinical social workers, because they're going to be clinical, are coming out, understanding how to move, how to shake and move in the field once they get out there. So we go over different tools. We present that in supervision so that they can have an understanding of that. And so they passed this with flying colors. Initially, it wasn't the case with all of the groups. So, which of the following assessment tools is commonly used to measure symptoms of depression? And let me know if you know that or not. And A is the GAD-7, B is the DS-2, C is the PHQ-9, and D is the ASQSF. Are there any of these that you don't know what they are? So in supervision, we talk about what's the correct answer and what is not the correct answer, so they will know when they see that come up. And this is how they need to be kind of in the mindset of doing when they're studying for the exam as well. But anyway, the answer to this one is what this one is for depression is the PHQ-9. Um, and so then we will go over some of these things and give a description of that. Secondly, the second question we went over, which psychological scale is designed specifically to assess symptoms of anxiety? See, the idea that I'm trying to push is that a good bit of my career, I've kind of just had the symptoms in my head and would go off of that. But I'm surprised I haven't been doing it this way with the tools because the tools give you so much more data where you can rank the severity. And if for some reason you have some type of audit or something like that, and you have to prove that you're really doing what you're supposed to do, then you have something representing here is the where we were, here is where we went. Well, we went back, and in my notes you can see it was based on the scenario that the scores changed, and then you have a picture so you can have some extra data for yourself and just in the event that you have an audit, but also for the client too. Sometimes they want to know about this. Anyway, the answer to this one really quickly, I need to move. I know I'm talking too much. Is GAD-7, and this measures anxiety. Really quickly, let's go to the next question. We got one more. Okay. Um, which of the following, we're at three, which of the following assessment tools is used to evaluate dissociative symptoms? So if you ever have a client who you suspect has dissociation, now let me tell you something. Um, Clues to this. Actually, let me write this down. I might forget this point. I had a supervisee to mention just actually today. They said that, hey, I was seeing somebody and they had complex trauma. They were had experienced that's not yeah, complex PTSD is what they mentioned. Wow. Okay, that actually was my point. They mentioned that they had complex PTSD, and that was due to trauma that they had experienced, right? And so my question immediately was, do they also dissociate? Does your client dissociate? Um, and so then I kind of asked the group, um, and we use tests, we use scenarios. I asked the group, um, you know, what do you think about this? If you have a client, why did I ask that question? Why did I ask the question? Does this in this scenario, because we don't use exact clients in the scenario, why is it that I might ask this question? Okay. Um, and so we went through that and I explained how when someone has experienced complex PTSD because they have been exposed so many times to that trauma, many times it's a natural point to start to dissociate. So this is something that we want to rule out with our clients. But the question might be, how do I know if my client dissociates or not? What kind of questions do I ask to nail that down? Well, you don't have to ask very many questions at all when you use certain scales like this one. So which of these is it? Okay, so the answer is A, and this is the dissociative uh dissociative oh, I forget sometimes because I'm live. Oh, dissociative, and then my writing is not helping. Dissociative experience scale. Two. Okay. And so this is a scale, it'll just break it down, it'll give you scores. And a lot of this is on your EHR if you're using EHR, but for a lot of my clinicians, they are not. They may be seeing clients private pay, so they may not even be set up on the traditional EHR. I don't know. But then I asked, what's the BDI? And this is another peer tested tool, and that's the Beck Depression Inventory, right? And so these are some good things to know. All right. And so we went over that. We went over biopsychosocial and what have you. But let's get to the question here. And this was really compelling. I'm going to try to run through it. My client won't talk. Um, what do I do? Okay. And so what we did, if you notice, there was another tool that was not mentioned today, but this is a really good tool that we want to know about. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the ASQSF. Okay, the ASQSF is the attachment styles questionnaire. I always forget this stuff when I'm live, so I keep notes. Attachment styles questionnaire. They have different versions of this, but this is a tool that you can use. So let's learn about how you can use it. And if I can remember, I will place the um, the link in the chat so that you can have this. Um, they'll let I'm not sure how it works with payment for this, but I know that you can use this. A lot of their stuff is free, Novo, but I know that you can give your client the link and then they can send you forward you the results that they download, but you may be able to continuously use this link too. But this gives you the tests, right? And so what I did in supervision was had my clinicians as they chose to fill this out themselves just so that they can get some tactical experience with what this test is all about. And so when we ask, okay, well, what is this test that we are talking about? The attachment styles questionnaire uh, is a questionnaire that helps you to be able to assess and determine attachment. Now, I've talked about attachment styles. I talk about it all the time. And I bring it here because I think it's super, super duper important. But when we're talking about attachment styles, um, it's not it's easy to kind of identify, is this person seem like they have deficits with trusting others or trusting themselves? Okay, well, if they have a deficit with trusting others, then it's probably and then they trust themselves, it's probably going to be avoidant, and then this person is likely has some avoidant concerns. Or if they overly trust others and don't really trust themselves, have confidence in themselves, then we know that we're talking about someone who is probably anxious, has the anxious style of attachment, right? But if we're identifying that, we're just left with that information exclusively with nothing else, right? The thing is that we want more data. We want more data. What about that person that hasn't been talking a whole lot? Like we're talking about our avoidant client. How do what we know that they're avoidant, but what about how did they get that way? What type of experiences did they have that got them in that position? Let me try to see if I can share my screen and let you see what the results of this test. And this is the beauty. Most of these tools that I've presented to you today, um, it only takes your client probably only 5 minutes to do it, and we got our supervisees to do it, and everybody seemed to feel like, well, most seem to feel like everybody that commented on it, because that's confidential, said that, hey, this is dead on. One of my supervisees said this is too accurate, right? And so this is what you get when you get the results, right? This is what it's going to look like, and they got this thing really. It's I love it, right? And so with this client, if this was our client, here's an example of what you would see. It looks like there are more, like, and I may be if you see something that I say that's not correct, just put it in the chat or wherever. But avoidant attachment seems to be the predominant style, that they show, right? Um, at least on average. We're low in anxious attachment, right? Okay, which makes sense because these are generally opposites, at least from my observations. And then it goes through some other subscales. But I like this. Look at this chart here. I love this, how this is beautifully done. And as you can see, our client in this situation, it looks like overall they're secure. But what I mentioned is that all of these are more uh probably some of the more dysfunctional pieces that they may still need work with. And it tells us a story as well. But overall, this client seems to be secure, but that doesn't mean that they're conflict free, does it? So what we do is they break it down a little bit what this is, but real quick, because I've been talking for a while. I want to make this video too long. We go down here, boy, and this is where it gets juicy. So if your client is not very talkative and doesn't really let you in, uh, as long as they answer this right, you got some data. Let me show you how. So I just say I just can't get a lot from this client. I need more information. Let's look at the first question here. It says, I feel confident that other people will be there for me when I need them. Do they feel that that's true, that other people are going to be there for you when you need them? What if they said, I disagree or I strongly disagree? That means that your client really doesn't trust that people, that's lack of trust, that's avoidant. They don't really trust that other people are going to be there for them. Well, guess what? Freud says with psychic determinism that there is a story behind that. So that opens up the floor to ask a few questions about, tell me more about that. So it sounds like that, your experience has been that you just don't feel confident. I'm understanding that you don't feel very confident that folks, that people will be there for you. Tell me a little bit about why you feel that way. And so now we're getting data. We're getting specifics about the avoidance, or what the avoidant parts of them, what that entails. Uh, let's see. I prefer to depend on myself rather than other people. So I don't rely on people. Okay. Um, I rely on myself. Okay. Something that I also learned about some avoidance is that these are the people sometimes that when it comes to uh getting gifts, some of them, so or somebody giving them something, some avoidants have a belief that I'm not taking something that I have not earned. you know Not all. A lot of them will take everything you got, because so a lot, avoidant, you got a lot of narcissists in the avoidant category. Anyway, I don't want to go too. All right, so but you start learning more data. But this person says, I prefer to depend on myself rather than other people, and this is, I strongly agree. I prefer to depend on people, depend on myself rather than, not to say that's a bad thing, but we want to understand, like, why is it that you don't really want to depend on others? It sounds like a trust issue, trust concern. So you might not say that, but you're having conversations about this. Okay, we're having conversations. Uh, and so then when we get into some of the other personality styles and things like that, we're gonna flip off the avoidant just so that you can see a little bit from the other. Um, well, I worry about. Well, that's not the one I wanted. Where is the one here we go. I worry that others won't care about me as much as I care about them. That sounds a little more like the anxious type, right? I worry that others won't care about me as much as I care about them. That sounds like an experience, doesn't it? Some place at some time, it's likely that this client couldn't depend on people caring for them. And so they may have developed a style of attachment that doesn't, where they don't really trust that they are going to have love reciprocated. And so a lot of times with these type of clients, they really just try to earn it. So they're doing a lot so that they can have someone or produce a situation where others seem to want to, reciprocate. Well, that is it. I hope that this has been helpful. I think this is a great tool to use to include in your arsenal with your clients. I'm going to try to remember to put the link for this in the chat, and you can get this breakdown just like this. I mean, they break this down really well. And so that you don't have to do all the work in your head. Understanding the value of metrics, it will save the day, and it will help you to understand, with like some of the other skills that I presented, how we are moving and improving. All right, I hope this is helpful, and we will see you all on next